The number one most powerful way to deal with negative and toxic people. It doesn't matter how dedicated you are to being at a high vibe and being positive. There are negative and toxic people out there, and sometimes we have to deal with them. And sometimes we can't avoid dealing with them because they're our family, or they're our neighbor, or maybe they live in our home, or maybe we work with them. And these are people that we have to commune with on a regular basis. What do you do? How do you deal with these people so that your vibe doesn't go down? Actually, how do you deal with these people so that your vibe increases, so that you are cultivating your own personal growth, so that you're cultivating your own higher vibration, and so that you are planting seeds of growth for them, so that maybe your seeds of positivity that are planted along the way will help to reduce or eliminate their negativity and their toxicity. How's that for a trick? That is what we're talking about today. It's very powerful. I'm very, very glad that you're here. So if that sounds good to you, stick around. First, check and see, are you a subscriber here? And if not, we'd love for you to become one right now. Just click the subscribe button and the little bell, and that will give you notifications when you log into YouTube that we've dropped another video like this to help you live a higher vibe, happier, more successful life. I'll be right back.
GILD Coaching. More success, less stress.
When there are negative and toxic people in your life, I think the easiest way that we would immediately think to deal with them is to not deal with them, to walk away. But that's not always an option, and it's not always the best option, even when we can do that. And the reason is, when we walk away from something like that, we know in our heart of hearts that we're leaving something unfinished. And if you're dedicated to this path of personal growth, if you're dedicated to a higher vibe, if you're dedicated to a better mindset, you probably just can't stand to do that. So we're going to talk about a better way to deal with them that not only cultivates your journey of personal growth, but can plant seeds for the other person to help disintegrate their negativity and their toxicity. The better way to deal with them is to first understand the source of their negativity. Now, when someone's really ugly to you, or just chronically negative or chronically toxic, it's not really our first inclination to lean in and figure out what's going on, but that's exactly what we have to do. We don't have to physically lean in, but I'm talking about just mentally through curiosity. I've talked about that word before. Curiosity is such an amazing gift that we can give ourselves in every situation in life. So when you understand the source of why they're so negative and why they're so toxic, then it helps you to have compassion for them. Now, I have a big spoiler. You don't have to figure out what happened to them when they were 3. Were they unloved as a child? Did somebody, I don't know, step on their foot too many times or whatever? The source of their negativity and toxicity is always one thing: fear. Now, we all have fear. I've done lots of videos on making fear your friend because it can help fuel you forward instead of ruling you and keeping you miserable like these negative and toxic people. But these people aren't doing that. They are allowing the fear to rule them instead of fuel them. Now, there's 3 types of fear that they could be experiencing. And this is what you need to figure out. Is it a fear, first, of being not respected? It's the fear of loss of respect, or not gaining respect, or not being taken seriously, not being honored as a unique and perfect soul, unique being. Perfectly imperfect, we would say. So that's number 1, lack of respect, no regard. Number 2, fear of a lack of love. Love and respect are different. You can love someone and not respect them. You can respect someone and not love them. So I don't mean like if you're working with this person, they want you to be in love with them, but high regard, holding someone in a like love place. Maybe they feel unlovable. Maybe they've been told that they're unlovable, that people don't understand them or whatever. So that's the second kind of fear. And the third kind of fear is just a basic belief that bad things just happen. Nothing ever works out for me. Some other people may call this pessimism. Okay, so one of my favorite affirmations that I've told you about many times here, if you've been with us before, if not, please check them out. But I've got my favorite affirmation that I perform every morning before I've even left my bed is everything is always working out for me. Some people believe exactly the opposite. Nothing ever works out for them. So if nothing ever works out for them, they have this huge fear of whatever the bad thing is that's going to come next. And just for a second, imagine that you are plagued with that disability. It would make for a pretty miserable existence, right? If you think that nothing's ever going to work out for you. Wow, what a depressing thought. So first, kind of figure out which one or which cocktail of these three kinds of fear is what's plaguing this person. Just understanding that source, what's causing the fear, is going to help you be more compassionate to them. Okay, so after you do that, then you need to figure out, okay, it might be hard for you to figure out which kind of fear it is. So look for these different things because their fear manifests in many different ways. Sometimes it'll manifest as a thin skin. A thin skin may look like if you walk by them and say, oh, you look really nice today. A thin-skinned, negatively minded person might say, well, did I not look nice yesterday? No, you're just remarking on your opinion of their appearance today. You're not making a judgment on yesterday or tomorrow, but they're already mentally predisposed to find the negative in there. And I've talked before on here about how our brains are naturally negatively predisposed to find danger, but this is just a hyperactive form of that's unhealthy, that dampens spirit. So it could be thin skin, could be overly judgmental. Have you ever met somebody like that who's just so judgmental? Oh, she doesn't look good and I don't like her. And he's all, ugh. That is a way that fear manifests in people's life because they automatically assume that people are judging them. And so they turn it around and start throwing those poison darts out at others. Also, high anxiety, people with really high anxiety, it comes from fear. Highly demanding people, really pessimistic people, people with no tolerance for risk. If they're afraid that bad things are always happening, why would they take any risks at all? They want the same routine, the same thing. They want to check the same boxes because they're afraid that anything that they try to do is going to turn out poorly. And it can also manifest as a need to control others. Oftentimes, these highly negative and highly toxic people just want to control everything. And that is born from fear because they're afraid if they don't control everything, then the bad things will happen. So it all comes back to one of those fears. So that's the problem. Pretty easy to detect, yeah? So what's the solution? The number one most powerful way to deal with negative and toxic people does start with developing that empathy for them, just through understanding why they're so nasty to begin with. So that develops that compassion. The empathy grows into compassion. This is a threefold answer for you. Okay, so develop that empathy. Convince yourself of this one truth. And this is true in every situation. These people are hurting inside, right? And when people are hurting, they often lash out. So because of that, I usually say hurt people hurt others. So people who are hurting hurt other people. Okay? Just remind yourself of that. You have to convince yourself to protect your own energy, protect your own thoughts, protect your own mindset, and know that all of these poison darts that are being thrown at you are just pieces of their own fear coming your way, and you can't take it personally. If you do take it personally, your vibe goes straight down. Okay, so develop compassion for them. Protect your own energy through strengthening your mindset. There's nothing wrong with you. There's something wrong with them. And then that grows your compassion even more. And number 3, have clearly defined boundaries. These people usually speak roughly or inappropriately. Maybe they have bad tempers. And it is perfectly fine to say, let's just pull a name out of the air, George. Sorry if your name is George. Just grab the first name that came to me. If George is a negative and toxic person and speaks to you roughly, it is perfectly fine to say, George, I respect what you're saying, but not how you're saying it. I'm happy to discuss this with you, but only when we can both be calm and deliver our words in a respectful way. That is a very who would be offended by that? Nobody who's really listening to what and how you're saying it. So you have to have clearly defined boundaries and stick to those boundaries with a soft and kind and generous spirit. The way that I just said that, I have delivered that to people, and either they accept it or they get irritated with it. But if I stick to it, then they know that the only way to communicate what they want to communicate to me is in a respectful way as I'm communicating with them. That is the number one most powerful way to deal with these people. And let me tell you a quick story about how I followed this for 2.5 years with someone. I was working in a corporate office environment, and this person was really nasty all the time. And I mean, at first I was just like, oh, how does so much ugliness live inside this one person? It was really a wonderful person with a lot of talents and a lot of great ideas. And I was extraordinarily befuddled by this because she was so amazing on one hand, and on the other hand was just rotten. It was very confusing to me at first. And then one day I learned that she had been working for this organization, and this organization was in peril. It was potentially going to have to close. I was brought in to help turn it around, and really was dedicated to doing that. And but she was afraid that it was going to fail. And she had given so much of her life and her energy and her expertise and her brilliance. I mean, she's a brilliant person. And during that time of workaholism, she was a bit of a workaholic, just working day and night and day and night and day and night to serve this very, very worthy nonprofit community-based organization. Her heart was really in it, which is why I thought she was such a beautiful person. And I was right, she is. But she, during all of this, her only child, she had been through a very damaging marriage, abusive, left her husband, escaped with her only child. They had survived. I mean, she was this warrior woman who had survived this horrific situation. In the middle of all that, while she was being a workaholic for this worthy organization that she was giving her heart and soul to, her only child, who was around 20 at the time, was the victim of a senseless crime, a random senseless crime, and was murdered. He walked into a store in the middle of a holdup. They turned on him, shot him. He just died right there. So she lost him just right in that moment. She was working when this happened. And she was so upset with herself at all of this lost time that she perceived that she had lost, because she hadn't spent this time with her son. She had spent it with this organization, pouring into the organization, that she desperately needed the organization to thrive, because that's what she had poured her heart and soul into, instead of her son, who was no longer living. When I learned that was the source of her negativity and toxicity, it really softened my heart. And I had never been unkind to her, but I was just very confused by her before this. But at that point, I was able to treat her with so much more compassion. I was very kind to her. 2.5 years, just really ugly, negative, just insulting behavior. And finally, one day, she had just had enough of my positivity, because it's annoying to people who are not positive. Your positivity can be really irritating to them. Just a warning. But one day she said that she yelled at me in front of many other people and said that nobody understood where my joy came from. And I just took a deep breath and I honestly said, I'm so sorry that you don't understand that. And I hope that you reach a place where you can have true joy. Well, her jaw dropped and she couldn't believe it. She didn't talk to me for about 3 weeks. And then after that 3-week period, when she would just avoided me like the plague, we had a nice long conversation. She apologized. I apologized for anything that I had done to irritate her. And now we're friends. So you might not realize how your seeds of positivity, how your seeds of patience, how your seeds of compassion, how your example of setting positive boundaries are planting seeds of positivity for this negative and toxic person that you're dealing with. But I promise that those seeds are not falling on dry ground. I promise, even if you don't see the results like I did, I promise in some way, your actions are making a difference. So follow this plan. It'll help you develop your spirit, develop your vibration at a higher level, and it will positively impact others. If this has been of use to you, please give me a thumbs up and let me know. You can leave comments in the comments section if you'd like. And also, if you didn't already, check and see if you're a subscriber. And if not, click the subscribe button and the bell so that you find out the next time that we drop a video like this with some life solutions to live a happier, more productive, higher vibe, beautiful life. I'll see you next time.